When I learned about the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management, or the DRRM, I realized that it really follows a cycle, and the main parts are the mitigation and prevention, preparation, response, and recovery or rehabilitation. And these are the stages that guide how we deal with disasters before, during, and after. Disaster risk can be explained through a formula, and here it is. Hazard multiplied by exposure multiplied by vulnerability. And let me explain each of these terms right here, their meaning, and when all of these are combined, they explain why disasters affect people differently. So let us start with hazard. So hazard is simply any event or phenomenon that can cause harm, like earthquakes, typhoons, or volcanic eruptions. On their own, hazards are just natural occurrences or from human activities. Next, also we have vulnerability. Vulnerability is how weak or unprepared people, communities, or systems are when hazards happen. For example, poorly built houses are more vulnerable during strong typhoons, and that's a fact. And we have here also exposure. Exposure refers to how much people, properties, or activities are actually in harm's way. Even if a hazard happens, if no one or nothing exposed to it, then no disaster will happen or will occur. And what is disaster? Disaster happens when a hazard strikes and severely affects exposed and vulnerable communities, causing loss of lives, damage, or disruption of normal activities. And lastly, we have disaster risk. So, disaster risk is the potential of that happening. So, in short, the chance that a hazard will cause a disaster, depending on how exposed and vulnerable the community is. And to apply, let's use the formula from this given scenario. So, Carlo lives on the 15th floor of a condominium near Mall of Asia. The area is prone to earthquakes, so the hazard level is rated 8 out of 10. Since he lives in a tall building close to Manila Bay, his exposure is rated 7 out of 10. Unfortunately, Carlo has not prepared any emergency kit and has heavy furniture at home that isn't secured, so his vulnerability is rated 6 out of 10. So let us define the given. So we have here hazard, which is equal to 8, since it says here that it is rated as 8 out of 10. Exposure, 7, and vulnerability, 6. Applying the formula, we have H times E times V, or hazard multiplied to exposure multiplied to vulnerability. So we have 8 times 7 times 6 equals 336. That is the disaster risk of Carlo. In some other literatures, they add the coping as part of this formula, and they divide these with the coping capacity. So let's say the coping capacity of Carlo is equal to 2 out of 10, since he is not prepared at all. So 336 divided by 2 is equal to 168. So this is the disaster risk of Carlo. Let's say Carlo prepared several kits and he joined community drills, stores emergency supplies, and learns first aid. So let's say the coping capacity of Carlo increases to 8. So what we have here is 336 divided by 8 is equal to 42. So this is only the disaster risk of Carlo. So this is termed as reduced risk. This is good, this is better since it's below 50. So how can we reduce risk? So for hazard, we can improve our abilities to monitor and forecast hazards. For exposure, increase awareness of the hazards faced by communities and their exposure to them. And vulnerability, the greatest benefits can be achieved by reducing the vulnerability to natural hazards. And disaster risk reduction and management is the overall approach to lessen risk, prepare people, respond effectively, and recover after a disaster. It's not just about reacting when something bad happens, but also preventing and reducing the possible impacts in the first place. So here in our country, we have several agencies that respond to disasters and hazards. For example, what we have here is the NDRRMC. So the NDRRMC, or the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, is the main coordinating agency. We also have PAG-ASA that monitors weather disturbances like typhoons and floods. We have PHIVOLCS that monitors earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The MMDA, which assists especially in Metro Manila during floods and emergencies. And BFP, or the Bureau of Fire Protection, responds to fires and rescues. And lastly, we have here the PCG, or the Philippine Coast Guard, which responds to sea-related accidents and rescues. So from what I've learned, all of these terms and agencies connect because hazards themselves cannot be avoided, but how prepared we are, how exposed we are, and how vulnerable we are will decide whether it becomes a disaster or not. That's why disaster risk reduction is really about making sure communities are stronger, safer, and able to bounce back. So let's now proceed with the CNA, or the community needs assessment that I had. So when we think of preventive measures in relation to DRRM, or the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management, the usual mindset is to help the underserved or underprivileged communities. But this time, I wanted to take a different approach. Since I am surrounded by condominiums, why not focus on them? So my chosen condominium is where I stay, and this is the Harvard Suites in Malate, Manila. And the tenants here are mostly students from LaSalle, or the DLSU Manila, PW, or the Philippine Women's University, and National University MOA. But the question is, does living in a condo automatically mean that you are safe? Does staying in a unit keep you away from the hazards that disasters can bring? So let's now start with the problem identification. Firstly, there's no warning system in every unit. So this is from my interviews with 10 tenants at Harvard Suites, and these are the underlying issues. So firstly, no warning system in units. So each unit has only a single telephone for one-way communication, and the receptionist can call the tenant, but the tenants cannot reach the reception during emergencies. So this one-way setup is a big problem when urgent help is needed. Next is fire exit visibility issue. So most respondents are not familiar with the position of the fire exit stairways in case the elevator goes off. And the fire exit door blends with the wall design, leading people to assume it is only for housekeeping or staff and not for tenants. And There is a proper signage indicating that it is a fire exit, but it is not immediately visible. Because of this, the tendency is that people will still use the elevator during emergencies, which is very dangerous. Next is lack of orientation. For my interview, tenants and visitors are not oriented by their agents or unit owners about fire exits and emergency procedures. They are just introduced with the unit itself, but not with the amenities or the emergency plans. So families, students, and even parents visiting Harvard Suites are not aware of the basic safety system. Next is limited rescue options. So elevators are slow and limited. It is insufficient, and some are only working efficiently between 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. And during daytime and evening, they are congested and very unreliable. No help button in every unit to contact the guards or the admin office. So the building becomes very susceptible to disaster risk. And in case of earthquake or fire, tenants are left with no direct way to call for help from their unit. Since the unit itself is a loft type architecture, so the tenants would get hard to get down since meron pang mga stairs, diba? So poor materials as well. Floors have leakage when raining hard, and windows are easily pushed by the air, and paints are susceptible to molds. So not just about the disaster, no. This is all about the materials used then. So this has impact on their health, sa health ng ating mga tenants. So now, I introduce a proposed solution of mine, the early warning through SOS alarm system. This is created with regards to the problems identified before. So I wanted to introduce the purpose of this, and it is to create two-way communication and fast emergency response between the tenants and the security or the reception. And we'll have a device, and that device is a wireless SOS button that directly sends an alert to a receiver at the designated staff. So later, we'll discuss it further, and the budget is around 2,500 pesos per 6 units. So the features of that device is like this. So it's a circular device with SOS text in the middle, and we'll have a receiver right here, 3 pieces of it, and 6 pieces of these SOS buttons. So in order for this to be created, of course, we'll have a trial testing first. So we have a pilot implementation. So starting with the 6 SOS buttons and 3 receivers for selected floors. So I randomly selected floors from where I'm staying, and I concluded that the receiver must be below the device and the floors. So it's alternating. So 1 receiver at the 4th floor, 1 receiver on the 6th floor, and 1 receiver on the 8th floor. And from 4th floor to 9th floor, there's 1 SOS button that is clickable by the tenants. By the way, the reachability feature of the SOS is 35 meters. Since Harvard Suites is only small in terms of its size, the surface area is very small lang. So 35 meters is enough. So what we'll be needing? So we have here a triangular legend which signifies for designated staff. So asan sila? Narito sila. 1, 2, and 3. So sa isang unit, may isang receiver, which is the blue one. And then for that receiver to be notified, kailangan may isang designated staff to it. And later, we'll discuss kung sino-sino nga ba yung pwede as designated staff. So in order for this to be implemented, kailangan ng human support system. So the SOS device must be backed by personal support. First, it could be guards or employees that will be assigned to manage each receiver on the 4th, 6th, and 8th floor. Second, these staff will be the first point of contact for emergencies on their respective floors. So, let's say I am on the 4th floor. Here. Let's say I'm here. And I click the SOS button and directly it will be notified here at the designated staff. And then the designated staff will call the receptionist below or the rescuers below. So they are the first point of contact in case of any emergencies. And they will relay the SOS alert to the rescuers and respond immediately to the unit requesting help, as what I have mentioned before. So, ito siya, yung rescuer, and then yung receiver. So, he has a device, his own device, and then mananotify yun kapag may nag-click ng button, ng SOS button from any unit. So, we'll proceed now to the training and orientation. So, in order for this to be implemented, kailangan alam muna ng mga personnel yung gagawin. And we cannot just designate a staff na ikaw dapat ang nandito, ikaw ang dapat na nandyan. They have to be educated on their particular duties and roles. So before implementing the system, a seminar must be conducted for the faculty, housekeeping, guards, and condominium admin. So they are the most important people in this implementation. And bakit kailangan to? This ensures that they are trained on the following. First, in responding to SOS alert. Paano kung hindi nila alam ang mechanism ng SOS alert? That's why you are there to inform them, to educate them about it. And guiding tenants during evacuation. So kailangan din na may representative ang mga tenants in terms of giving the information sa ating mga personnel and using proper safety gear. Lalo na yung mga designated staff on that particular floor na may receiver, they have to be properly equipped in terms of their clothing and etc. Kasi hindi natin dapat i-risk yung health din nila. Since sila yung rescuers, sila din dapat yung merong magandang gear to protect themselves from any danger as well. And coordinating with external rescuers if needed. So let me explain first the SOS mechanism. So how it works ba? So we have here an SOS device, and this is connected through a phone via an app, and it will scan the receiver. Here is the receiver. So it will register the name of the tenant, contact number, and the unit number. So as you can see here, this is the name of the tenant. This is the contact number of the tenant, and this is the unit number. Dapat specific unit number. And then, after registering, it will scan the receiver and manually connects through pairing method. So after registering here, maglo-load yung device mo as it connects here sa ating receiver. And then right after that, right after the pairing, the device is ready and you can alert the SOS via the mobile app or the device mounted on the wall. So it could be accessed through your mobile phone, at kapag hindi naman, mayroong designated na device na pwedeng isabit sa mga walls natin na kung saan naaabot ng kung sino man, reachable ng kung sino man, mapabata man or matanda. So clicking this would notify the personnel managing the receiver. At ito yun. If you click this, this will be notified. This will have vibrations, sound, and directly will be notified on the personnel's phone na nag-indicate na kailangan nito ng tulong. Kailangan ng tenant ng tulong. So the personnel will click the button in order to connect his or her device and get notified when the SOS button is clicked. So kailangan din ng personnel or ng rescuer na mag-register through this receiver since dito yung access niya. And then once it is registered, the personnel will register his or her name as well as the contact number. So here, yung name ng ating rescuer or the designated staff and his or her contact number. Since ito yung gagamitin niya to contact the rescuers below the condo. So what is the connection or the importance of this with regard to the 4 pillars of DRRM? So first, prevention and mitigation. The SOS button addresses hidden risks before they become deadly, preventing misuse of elevators and ensuring quick alerts. So with this, hindi na nila kailangan magpanic. Kasi may point of order na, may parang may sense of urgency na sa kakulangan sa SOS button, sa help button na kinakailangan in case of any disaster. Preparedness. So conducting orientations and staff training equips the condominium community to know what to do before a disaster happens. And as well as response. The SOS system ensures tenants can call for immediate help, allowing personnel and rescuers to respond quickly to the right unit. So hindi na magiging aligaga yung mga rescuers natin kung saan sila hahanapin kasi they are notified with the exact location of the tenant that is in need of help and as well as recovery. So after a disaster, a functional emergency communication system builds trust, restores confidence, and speed up the return to normal operations. But I would like to highlight the preparedness. Since the proposal emphasizes training and orientation for staff, security, and tenants, ensuring that they know how to respond to an SOS alert and assist during evacuation. So, parang this is a key element of preparedness because it builds the knowledge, the skills, and readiness of people before a disaster strikes. So, by conducting simulations and creating a structured communication system, the community is better equipped to handle emergencies. So, ito yung pinaka-importante sa ating proposal, as well as the response. Since the SOS alarm system allows for immediate two-way communication between the tenants and the designated staff during an actual emergency. So this strengthens the response phase by enabling quick alerting. Yun yung wala sa condo na tinitirhan ko. And guiding of tenants and coordination with rescuers in real time. And the system ensures that once a hazard occurs, rapid actions can be taken to save lives and minimize damage. So that's it. This is pretty simple, but this is really helpful in mitigating the absurd destruction caused by potential disasters, especially the earthquake. So by the way, I am Dylan Escalante and I am from OD242.